The Lodoss novels received a lot of manga adaptations, some never made it into an anime, and they are, for me, amazing in their own way. They explain more about the world, filling the gaps between arcs, and some alternate takes on some plots that aren't bad at all. So in this video I'm going to talk about some of the manga adaptations. But before I start, I want to say that I won't go in depth with the Welcome to Lodoss Island manga, because this is basically a manga version of the parody shorts that plays after an episode ends in the Lodoss TV series. And the only difference here is the addition of more stories being parodied that weren't adapted into an anime, which I will talk about in this video anyway. So let's get started. The Grey Witch manga. So this is a manga adaptation of the first Lodoss novel, The Grey Witch, which was the first 8 episodes of the OVA, and it spanned 3 volumes. And the art was done by Yoshihiko Ochi, and he did a fantastic job in this manga. The first thing I noticed is that everyone looks younger in this, and I liked it. It gives some kind of innocence to the main characters, and it's suitable since they're young and lack experience. And there was a lot of use of comedic funny faces, but only when the main cast interact with each other. As a result, it helped the development of their friendship more than the OVA, for me. The plot is the same and it goes in the same direction of the OVA, but there are things that are different. There are subplots that weren't in the anime. The story follows a linear path from beginning to end, unlike the OVA where sometimes the plot goes back and forth in a non-linear way, which is something I prefer. Also, some of the characters were introduced differently from the anime, and a lot of them are more developed and explored with their backstory. Most noticeably, Woodchuck. He was some sort of a bad guy, surprisingly, and more backstory about Parn's father with an emotional flashback about him that finally showed his face. Another thing to notice is that the manga focuses more on the main characters and Carla more than Belle, Wagnard, and Ashram. Heck, Ashram is barely in this, sadly. So the friendship was developed better, but at the cost of seeing less of some of the villains. The Song of Heroes is used differently. Instead of a banquet in the middle of the story, it was sung in the beginning of the manga, by a girl in a forest, and Deedlit was listening to her. And it worked as a great prologue, which brings me to the legendary 6 heroes. There is more significance regarding them, more backstory about their war, and showing flashbacks when they were younger. And that led into revealing more information regarding Carla, which humanized her a little bit. And I think it was a setup regarding the Lady of Pharis prequel. More on that later. So the main negative for me is sometimes I think they put more effort into explaining things. I kinda prefer the OVA approach where they let me figure things out on my own through hints and pictures. The second thing is that Parn briefly wears the Knight of Valis armor to go into war, and I thought that was so out of character. He should have refused to wear it like in the anime. He does get his dad's armor back, but I thought it would be better if he didn't wear the Valis armor in the first place. Now what I'm about to say here is a major spoiler to this manga and the OVA, so skip this part if you don't want to be spoiled. So by the end of the manga, it did something where in my opinion is way better than the OVA, and that is Carla's possession of Woodchuck. Since he is developed as a character way more in the manga, you see him throughout the story being envious of everyone, and always feels like an outcast even though they were good to him. But you always feel like there is something fishy about him. So when Carla was defeated, he got her scarlet, and poured out all of his envy towards the main characters, and he thought maybe wearing the scarlet might make him somewhat important. So he basically risked his life, foolishly, so that he might become someone important or powerful regardless of being good or bad. And I loved that! That scene was very shocking, emotional, and a very great twist. It would have been amazing if this was done in the anime. Instead, in the anime he was just possessed, without any of the main characters knowing about it. And in the anime he was just a comic relief, which I liked, but I prefer Woodchuck's approach here more than the anime. So in brief, this is an awesome manga that retells one of my favorite stories in fantasy anime, and this manga delves deeper into the characters and their backstory. Sure, there were some changes I didn't like leaving out some important supporting characters, but also there were changes that were better than the anime in my opinion. So it was a good trade. The Demon of Flame manga. So this is a manga adaptation of the second novel, The Demon of Flame, and it spanned 2 volumes and the art was done by Saito Ayumi. And this arc is a sequel to the Grey Witch arc, but this is not the Fire Mountain arc that took place 5 years later. You know, the arc that was loosely adapted by the end of the OVA and then faithfully adapted into the beginning of the TV show. That arc covered the 3rd and 4th novels. This arc, however, takes place during the 5-year time skip, to be exact, 2 years after the Grey Witch arc. So this story takes place between those 2 arcs, and it was never adapted into an anime, sadly. This is by far the least impressive art of all the Lodoss manga adaptations. A lot of the time it doesn't even look good. Deedlit looks more adorable though, but Casio looks way younger here even though this takes place 2 years after the Grey Witch arc, and it doesn't make any sense. The art becomes good mostly through the new characters. You know, it just needed a little more polish to make everything look better overall. The plot focuses on the origins of the Kingdom of Flame, and that hooked me immediately. So apparently Flame is in a long war between the Fire Clan, and that the current people of Flame are considered the Wind Clan, and that those 2 clans were originally one 500 years ago. And the reason for all this war is because magicians from the ancient kingdom got involved, which led to their separation. Carla? Oh, and those 2 clans have some sort of guardian gods. The Fire Clan got Ifrit and the Wind Clan got Jinn. Both look amazing. So at the beginning of the manga, Parn and Deedlit are looking for Woodchuck, aka Carla, and it feels like a direct aftermath of the first arc. And when they mentioned the final moments of that arc, it was the manga version, which I appreciate because, like I said before, I prefer the manga approach of what they did with Woodchuck. As for the new characters, we have the 2 villains from the Fire Clan. First we have Nadia. She is the leader of the clan and she is a good person overall, righteous and only wants her people to live in a safe haven. She's powerful and you eventually sympathize with her. Then we have the sorcerer of the Fire Clan, Azumo, who is basically a Wagnard wannabe, a douchebag sorcerer who is making everything worse behind his leader. An average villain, but I couldn't help but feel like he is a recycled version of Wagnard, and I never cared for him at all, unlike Nardia, and would have preferred a different type of villain. But Nardia was awesome and memorable, so I wasn't really bothered by him a lot. The main purpose of this manga, Book 2, I believe is to develop the relationship between Parn and Deedlit and establish them as a couple. The plot focuses a lot on both of them saving each other and having a lot of intimate moments and eventually having the moment. And as a fan of those 2 characters for years, some of the intimate moments felt so fulfilling. This is by far not a romance-focused manga. The plot of the Fire Clan versus the Wind Clan is awesome, and you get a lot of amazing moments and memorable new characters for both sides. But when I was done reading it, I realized it is made for developing Parn and Deedlit as a couple and reminds the readers why they are an awesome duo that would never be separated. It's short and sweet. Deedlit's Tale manga. This is a manga adaptation of the side story novel Deedlit's Tale, and it spanned 2 volumes and the art was done by Setsuko Yoniyama, and this arc takes place during the second time skip, the 10-year gap between the Fire Mountain arc and the Chronicles of the Heroic Knight arc. It is the bridge between the 2 generations. The art can turn a lot of people off. It's as shoujo as it gets, whatever that means. I liked it. Everything looks clean and big. The way the eyes are drawn is cute and adorable. Reminds me a lot of Clamp. I didn't like how Parn looks though. He is just way too different. But Deedlit on the other hand, holy crap, she looks amazing. More on the beautiful side than the cute side. The plot is about the backstory of Deedlit. It delves deep into the politics of her home, the Forest of No Return, and it shows a lot of her clan, the High Elves. Why this clan hates humans, why the forest has the Curse of No Return, why is it sealed away from humans, who is Deedlit's family, why she left the forest in the first place, what was her first encounter with a human. All of that is answered here, and most importantly, this manga centers around her growing love for Parn, and oh my god, she loves him so much. Throughout the manga, we go through her head, how she feels and thinks, and her conflicted feelings because he is human. And one of the major new characters is Estes, a high elf and Deedlit's close friend from her clan. And this character is weird. Like, he's not a villain, yet he hates humans, but it wasn't overdone to make him a super bad person, because he's not. Does that make sense? Oh well. Also, what surprises me is how the Demon of Flame arc is so relevant here. The final events of that arc plays a major role in here, especially when it comes to Deedlit's feelings towards Parn. And it makes sense that arc established those two as a couple, and this arc makes those feelings flourish, especially for Deedlit. Last thing to mention is that we get to see young Leaf, the half-elf from the TV series, and they showed her origin story, and there were some fun Easter eggs like Lelia holding baby niece. It's just tiny things like this that make this manga a much better read for Lodoss fans. As a massive Deedlit fan, it was great. Just like the Demon of Flame arc, it is for people who wants to see Parn and Deedlit relationship as the center. And this is by far the best story for Deedlit when it comes to her development as a character. Chronicles of the Heroic Knight manga. Okay, so this is a manga adaptation of the 5th and 6th novels, and it came out during the same time of the anime, the Lodoss TV series, and it spanned 6 volumes, and the art was done by Masato Natsumoto, who is known for doing the art for some Gundam manga, like the Lodoss War Chronicles, From Place Beyond the Blaze, and the manga adaptation for Encounters in Space. But in these books, it says he was known as the guy who did the King of Fighters manga? Okay, makes sense since the Gundam stuff he did came out way later. That was pointless. Anyway, so is this manga the same as the anime or different? Yes and no. As it says on the first volume, this graphic novel series is as pulse-pounding as the Heroic Knight anime series, but tells a very different story, richer and with deeper character development. And there is some truth to that statement. The art for this is incredible, stellar, and consistent, unlike the anime. And if you saw my video on the anime, you know how much I struggled with the art. Here everything looks amazing, clean, with a surprising amount of delicious gore, cruel imagery, awesome monster designs, Ashram looking like Saito is funny yet awesome. It definitely has that mature look to it. The landscape and the scale of wars is drawn well here, and there is a good attention to detail. Reminds me a lot of the classic Lodoss OVA, but not as gritty. The villains, especially Wagner, looks beautifully creepy, unlike the TV series. He looks closer to what he looked like in the OVA here. Overall, the art beats the TV series in every way possible. Now let's talk about what the manga claims, that the story is completely different and how I think there is some truth to it. I'll explain. The plot is the same, how the story unfolds is the same, the story ends the same, but how it reaches the end is different. It's like the story took another route to reach the same ending, and those differences start with the introduction of the new character called Jeba, a dark elf with a mysterious objective who serves Wagner to help him resurrect Cardis. And this guy is menacing, evil, and holy guacamole super powerful. He can summon high spirits like Jinn like it is nothing. If it is another character in Lodoss, that character would die summoning this kind of spirit. And as much as he is evil, you somehow see something good in him, but you can't really see what it is until the end. He's an amazing character, he's basically the main villain, and Wagner is working behind the scenes like always. So I love the different approach in the manga. The main characters spend more time together and more information about them is told. Parn is more badass, Kashu is a beast in this, Ito is a very important character in the story. A certain character from the OVA, Grey Witch arc, appears, and the pacing is a little faster than the anime, which I prefer to be honest. The only negative I have is the absence of Carla and the lack of Ashram in this. Ashram doesn't have a final sword fight with Parn, and Carla is nowhere in this manga. She's not here. I feel that they sacrificed Carla and they replaced her with Jeva. As much as I love Jeba, I really wish it was Carla instead, since in the TV series she was barely there and wanted to see more of her. I mean, throwing out Carla completely is kinda risky, especially during the climax of the story. I wouldn't mind if she appeared a little bit, but nope, she didn't appear at all. So was Jeba worth the Carla replacement? I don't know. I always treated this manga as a different version, and the result that it is a fresh approach in a good way. The different route the story takes is much better than the anime for me, and it doesn't change my opinion on the anime at all. Cause like I just said, I see this as a different version that has many advantages and little disadvantages over the TV series. I saved the best for last. Finally, I get to talk about my favorite Lodoss story. Yes, this is my favorite Lodoss story. Now, this is a manga adaptation of the Legend of Lodoss novel, and it spanned 2 volumes in 1995, and the art was done by Akihiro Yamada. This manga is a prequel to the Lodoss story, and it takes place during the legendary heroes as young warriors. This is basically an adaptation of the Song of Heroes used in the Grey Witch arc, and the art done by Mr. Yamada is so amazing. Holy crap, I can't praise this enough. This guy is perfect for doing the art for Lodoss, and the world looks gritty, amazing detailed character designs, and some wonderful imagery is used to make the battle scenes look spectacular. And the best thing about the art is the attention to details. Everything is so detailed with so many things happening in just one panel. So the story is a prequel that focuses on the legendary heroes and what made them legends to begin with. We see young Fawn, Belt, Wart, Nis, and we see the rest of the heroes we only heard about like Flaus, Flav the Dwarf King. And finally, we see Carla as the nameless warrior. The plot is about them confronting the Demon King, a naked little girl of all things, and she is menacing with an eerie feel. I love her. She has super cool powers, and just seeing those characters being young and friends is so pleasing. And when they said they were legends, they meant it. They were powerful as fuck. Those characters did things that are basically impossible for future generation of characters to do. That's how powerful they were. Belt is so lovable, surprisingly. He's a savage mercenary and he's cocky and always have fun in battles, and you see his human side, and his slow descendant into madness. Fawn is like a young pawn, the leader of the Holy Knight of Valis. Ward is mysterious like always, and he is Belt's companion in their adventures. Nis is innocent but fearless, but Holy Mother of Marfa, she is powerful. Carla, as being Carla, always gives you the vibe that you can't trust her. Flav the Dwarf King is... he's amazing. And his story is about the struggle of a king who has lost his kingdom, and it is written flawlessly. But the character who steals the story by far is Flaus, the Lady of Pharis, and Belt's love interest. And when I first read this, I never thought this character would become my favorite Lodoss character. She is the embodiment of all the main characters of the franchise. She has the best characteristics of Fawn, Belt, Parn, and Spark put together. She is the hero of all heroes, the most brave, and the most heartbreaking story of all of Lodoss. And she deserves to be the title character. She is the unsung hero, literally, which made her story more sad and wonderful at the same time. Also, what I loved is the inclusion of a lot of Easter eggs that are related to the future arcs, and this always makes me go, I get that! Which is one of the joys of prequels, is the hints of the dark future of these characters, and the expansion of an already existing world. And this manga starts with talking about how the world of Lodoss, for Celia, and the creation of the gods happened, and this just made me know more about the mythology. We also get a deeper and closer look at Kastul, Carla's original home. This manga is a love letter for Lodoss fans. It explains a lot about an already existing story, awesome origins of legendary characters, and seeing how everyone were friends before everything went to shit. And it reminds me why I love prequels, because good prequels to me, generally get made for people who already know the source material, not for new fans, so that they have fun with the Easter eggs, the ironies, and the shocking surprises that changes how we look at the source material. And it doesn't explain things that has already been explained before, because it assumes you know the source material. And all of that is a sign of a good prequel, for me that is. And the Lady of Pharis does that brilliantly. Although I have to say, the story ends abruptly in the final battle. The battle basically ends, and so is the manga. And if you want to know what happens immediately after the final battle, then you will have to play the Super Famicom game that bridges the Lady of Pharis with the first arc, the Grey Witch arc. More on that on the next episode, the finale of my Lodoss marathon.